Hey everyone, welcome to this free chess tactics masterclass. In this masterclass, I'll be going through a lot of different tactics, and I'll be providing 3 positions for each tactic, and I'll also provide you with time so you can stop the video for a moment and try to find the best move on your own. First of all, we'll be starting with forks, which is a simple one, but try to stop the video right now and find the best move for white in this position. You're playing with white. Okay. Now, if you thought about the move a3, you're just attacking the queen, but after the move a3, you have to think what your opponent can do, and his queen is not trapped. After a3, he can go queen to d4, offering a queen trade, and forcing actually a queen trade because the queen will be pinned. So, is that a good thing? Well, let's first analyze the position. Our opponent has 2 rooks, we only have 1 rook, he has 2 bishops, we have 2 bishops, he has a knight, we have a knight, he has a queen, we have a queen. But the problem is, he's up a rook. So it is not a good thing to attack the queen, to force it to trade off the queens, and now we'll be just trading into a losing endgame, right? So we don't trade queens, so it's definitely not the move a3. You might have thought about, okay, bishop takes bishop. Now that's a good move. You're just giving a check. But what happens after this? What happens after he takes? And if you found the move queen to h3, good job. You traded off, you traded off the bishops to force the king out to d7 so that you can give this check on h3 so that you can get the knight. So he cannot, even if he block with the pawn or with this pawn or he moved the king, he will lose the knight no matter what, and then he will win it. Now you can see, you look at this position, yes, your opponent is still up 2 points of material, but your queen is active, your bishop is active, your rook is active, your king is safe, your knight is active, you have 2 pawns in the center, and your opponent, look at your opponent, he only has 1 queen, 1 piece out, and it's not looking very good for him. So it's a good position for white. Now we're going to go to a different position. Here, you are playing with black. What would you do here? Okay, hopefully you stop the video to try to find the best move. You might have thought about taking his queen, but he can just take your queen with a check. So you're not winning the rook after that. So after you take his queen, he will take your queen with a check. You have to move the king, and then he will just move his rook, and there is no fork because the bishop and the knight are actually controlling that square. So you don't have a win. You might have thought about maybe getting the queen here, but it's also not winning because he can just get back with the queen, or he can just he can just get back with the queen to defend here, and your opponent is still in a good shape, and it's not winning for you. The only way to get this into a win is to get the queen to give a check for this game, for the white king. But how can you give a check with the queen here? There's a pawn. It's impossible. Well, you have to remove this pawn, and you have to do exactly as you did before. You have to force the king out so that you can have a check. So you can play the move rook takes g2. And when he takes with the king, now you get the queen out of this attack, okay? And by playing this check, he blocks, you move the king, it doesn't matter. You will win his queen later. Like he blocks with the bishop, you take his queen, and you're winning this. They're up material, and you will definitely be winning this. Let's look at the third position. You're playing with white pieces here, okay? So pause the video and try to find the best move for white. Okay. Now, it is very tempting to play a move like a knight to f8 check because you're not allowing the king out. That could be a good move, but after this check, he will just move away, and it's not so clear, okay? Because you only have this, so you might end up in a draw. Well, you don't want that. You actually win this game. So try to find the win here. And if you thought about the move g6, you are a great chess player. That's the best move. Now, what happens if he takes with the queen? Well, you can just simply force the queen here so that you can play this check, and you will pick up the, like, let's say the king went here, you can just take the queen for free, and you're winning here, right? And since he cannot go back, and he cannot take with the queen, not to lose his queen, what about taking with the king? What happens here? Well, you still play this check. Now there's a fork. And after the king move, before taking the queen, just give a check moves, the king moves, and then you pick up the queen, and you're still winning this because your queen is super active. You will win all of his pawns, and you can stop this pawn from promoting by, potentially putting the knight here to stop the pawn from promoting, and sack the knight for it. And you also have a pawn. It is winning for white. Now we're going to go to a different type of tactics, which is a skewer. So in this position, you're playing with the white pieces. Sorry. Pause the video and try to find the best move for white here. Okay, and I'm sorry about the buzz sound in the background. I'm really sorry, but if I had to put a face cam, there has to be this pause sound in the background, so I cannot really do anything for it. Now, you might have thought about rook takes rook, and you thought, okay, now when he takes back, you would have this check, and the king would move somewhere, and you will pick up his queen. That is nice, but there's a small problem here. After you take, he doesn't have to take you, right? He's not forced. He can give you checks all over the place, and it will not be so clear. It might end up with a draw, and you don't want the draw. You can win here. So the move is to play the skewer, and the skewer is to play queen to f6 check. Why? Because now you're trying to win his queen. Force it. Force this move to try to win his queen. Whenever he moves his king, you will just take his queen. So, and even if he takes the queen, now you can take with the rook, forcing the king away, and you will pick up his queen, and this is a win for white. Now we're going to go to a different position. Here you're playing with the black pieces. What would you play here? Sorry, playing with the black, yeah. Playing with the black pieces. Your opponent played the move b4, attacking your knight. What do? Most of you will think about taking the pawn back, and actually this is the best move. But then your opponent can take the pawn back and still attacking your knight, and you have to move it. So what do? Where do you put your knight? Okay. If you thought about, going back with the knight, it is understandable. Maybe try to reroute the knight like this, to attack the center, to put the knight there maybe. But you have a better move, and a better move is to play this check. Now, your opponent cannot go to a light square, okay? Because he can just open up like a discovered attack, discovered check, and pick up his queen. So we cannot do that. And white in this position thought that he can take the knight, and after you take with the bishop, he can take with the queen. So he earned 2 pieces for only 1 piece. And so he will be up material. He will be up 1 pawn, and he is already up 2 points. So it's really fine. Now he decided to take here. Now, here it's bad because of this check I told you, and you can pick up the queen. Even if the queen went there, you can just take it. So the move is to go rook takes knight. And after you take his rook and queen takes, white thought that he was winning here. But white missed that at the end of this, you have the skewer, rook to a1 check. He cannot block with the knight, and he cannot block with the queen because he will definitely lose it. Whenever he moves with the king, you pick up the rook, and this is a win for you, for black. Now we're going to look at a different position. Here you're playing with white pieces. Pause the video and try to find the best move for white. Sorry, I have a little pain in my throat. Okay. Hopefully you stop the video to try to find the best move here. Now, you might have thought about playing this check. But after that, it's not so clear how you're going to get the win, unless you want to keep on giving checks left and right and get a draw. The only way to win this is to play knight to e6 check. Now what happens if the king went here? Well, that is just a checkmate, right? Okay, now there are still 3 options to cover. What if he went here? Well, we can just give a check. He goes here, another check, he goes here, and this is checkmate. Now, what about this check? And he went not to the corner, he went here. Well, that's a check. He cannot go, he only has to go to the corner, and that will be a check as well. And if he went here, now it is the important move. What do you do here? Not this check. Yes, it's a fancy move, he cannot take you, but it's not winning. And it is not this check because you cannot take him, because you will lose your pawns, and he has 2 passers. So it's not winning for you either. The way to win this is through a skewer. So you play this check, queen to h7 check. Now, your opponent has two options, either to go here or to go here. And in both ways, he is losing. Why? Well, if he takes the knight, told you, a skewer, you give a check. Now you can pick up the queen. Whenever the king moves, you can just pick up the queen and you are completely winning this game. Now, what if he didn't take the knight? He didn't fall for it and he just went here. Well, you force it. How you can force it? You don't play this check. You want to stay on the same diagonal as his queen so that you can pick it up later. You play this check on the same diagonal. The king is forced to move to this square, and now you can play this check, knight to c5 check. The king moves somewhere like here, and now you can win the queen. Even if he takes here, this is still winning for you. After this check, you have a queen. Come on. Now we're going to talk about a different tactic, which is a pin. You're here playing with the white pieces. Pause the video and try to find the best move for white here. What would you play? You might have thought about, in this position, to sacrifice the queen. I mean, it's very tempting, I understand. But after queen takes, the king is stuck. It is almost checkmate, but after he takes, you take with the rook, he goes here. It is not checkmate because after this check, he can go here, and you're not winning. So what do you do? The way to win this is to play queen to g5. Why? He still cannot take it because he is pinned. And now what you're trying to do, you're trying to sacrifice the rook, okay, to force him to take, and after you take, that will be checkmate. Now, if he takes this knight, it is a checkmate in one. That's just checkmate. And he cannot take you here. He cannot move the king. He can't do really anything, unless maybe he wants to sacrifice the queen. But then he can just take the queen. He cannot take your queen because it is pinned, and you will win later by sacrificing the rook. Let's say he takes here. I mean, just it is a win. So the only move to try to find here is the move queen to g5. And if you found it, you have a very good tactical eye. Now let's go to a different position. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video and you're learning from it, imagine the value that you will get from someone, going through your rapid games and just looking at your blunders and your mistake and providing tips on how to improve and how to avoid those blunders and how to win more games. Now, because I help, chess players get better at chess through making them personalized game review videos. So they just send me their games, okay, and I make them a personalized video like this one, going through their games, in an in-depth analysis of their games and providing tips. And if you want one, you can just fill out the Google form in the description. I just want your chess.com username so that I can see your games, and you will tell me your first name and you will tell me your email so that I can send you the link of your personalized video. Now, your first video will be 100% free. So if you want to, just fill out the form and I will, see one of your games, make a video about it, and send it to you privately. Now, let's talk about this position. You're playing with white. You're playing with the white pieces. What would you do? It is very tempting, and you already saw it, which is to sacrifice the rook. And yes, that is a good move. That is the best move because the king cannot run away because of your queen holding that square. Now, when he takes, yes, you play this check. Oh, so far so good. You're finding the best move. But after he blocks with the knight, now what do you do? If you thought about sacking the rook another time, it is not so good because after he takes, some checks. Now you have no more checks. Yes, you have this check, but after the king moves, it will be maybe a draw. I have no idea if it's going to be a draw or not, but I know that it's a win. So yes, congratulations. You find the best move. You find the second best move, but after he blocks, it is not rook takes. So pause the video and try to find the best move here. The best move here is to play queen to f7 check. Now the knight cannot block because it's already blocking the rook check, right? So the only square for the king is to go here. Now you still don't take this. It's not winning. It is the exact same position as earlier. You just take this pawn. Now you are forcing this one move checkmate, and he cannot stop it no matter what. No matter what. Here, he can do exactly like what you did in the first place by sacrificing his rook to force the king out, and after he plays this check, you don't move back here because now you're completely losing because of this check, and he can pick up your queen. Sorry, he can pick up the rook, defending his knight. You have no more checks, and you're completely losing. So after this check, okay, you just go here. You go to a light square, and he cannot give you any checks. The only check that he can give, it is this one, bishop to e6, but you can just pick it up. You will win the knight after that, and it will be a checkmate very soon. Now let's look at a different position. Here you are playing with the white pieces. Now your rook is attacked not by the pawn because it is pinned, but by the knight. So what do you do here? What would you play with the white pieces? Okay, hopefully you stop the video to try to find it. Here you want to checkmate your opponent. You want to checkmate him here. And the only way to do that is to put the bishop on h6. He cannot take the rook, right? And if he takes the rook with the knight, well, he's going to get checkmated with one move, so he cannot do that. But then he pushes the pawn. You cannot take his rook because he will take your rook, attack your queen, and he will pick up the bishop later. So the move is, come on, try to find it. You want to checkmate your opponent on this square, this specific square, on g7, with the queen. But there's a pawn here, so how can you get the queen there? By playing queen to d4. Queen to d4, he cannot take the rook. Why? Because he can play queen takes, and there is no way for him to stop the queen from getting to g7 and checkmate him. No way to stop you. So he cannot take the rook. And now what you're really threatening, let's say he made like a weird move like rook here, for example. You can sacrifice the rook. That's the exact point of putting the queen on d4. You want to sacrifice the rook with a check so that if he takes with this pawn or he takes with this pawn, you will just get in with the queen and that will be checkmate. So, of course, black will not play that and black will not take. The best move for black here is to play knight to e5. Knight to e5 blocking the queen's vision here. Now, what if he blocked with the queen? You don't take the knight, you will lose your rook. So what do? You just simply take his queen, and after he takes, you take the rook. After king takes, you have two rooks, but it's a rook and a knight. You are up material, and you will win this because you have two rooks, and two rooks are much stronger. So this is why he will not trade into a very dead endgame for him. He puts the knight here to at least block the queen and maintain his queen so that he can have some kind of drawing possibilities, right? Now you can just pick up the rook. After he takes, you get back with the rook and you're up material and you will be winning this game. Now we're going to look into a different type of tactics. So far we covered forks, skewers, and pins. Now we're going to look at sacrifices. In this position, you're playing with white pieces, okay? So take a little bit of time to understand this position and then find the best move for white. Okay, now before trying to find the best move, what I would advise you to do, first of all, just analyze the position. Look at your opponent pieces and your pieces. Your opponent has two rooks, you have two rooks. Perfect. He has two bishops, you have two bishops. Perfect. He has a king and you have a king, of course. Now you have 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns, and he has 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. But there's a problem. Even though it's completely drawish, any material, but your opponent can sacrifice his queen, and if you take it, he will make another queen, and he just won the bishop, and your king is not safe, because even if you went to e2, the bishop moves, and you will get checked all over the place, and you will be losing. So the best way to relieve the pressure is to get the queens off the board. How can you do that? How can you trade the queens without allowing your opponent to have this check on g1? You have to trade the queens. You have to give your queen to take his queen. You have to do something. And the way to do so is to play queen takes b7. You sacrifice the queen, taking the bishop. Now, your opponent has no option. He's forced to take it. And now the entire point of this sacrifice is to trade off the queens by playing f4. But f4, it is a check. He cannot take or move the queen because of this check. He cannot block. Even if you block, I mean, you can just take it. And if he takes back, you can just take and put the king there, and it's completely fine for you. And after he moves the king, you can just pick up the queen. He takes with the rook, and now you're completely fine. You're completely fine, and you have very strong bishops that are defending your king, and this is a win for you, because now you're up 2 points of material, and you relieve the pressure from your opponent pieces. Now let's look at a different position. Here you're playing also with the white pieces. Pause the video and try to find the best move for white. So your queen is attacked, okay? And if you decided to move the queen, you have to first analyze the position. Is it a good move if I just moved away and just continued in this position? Let's look. He has 2 rooks. You have only 1 rook. He has a queen, you have a queen. So he's up 3 points of material because he only has a bishop and he has a rook for it, right? And he has very advanced pawns and very safe pawns because you cannot target them with your bishop. So this bishop is garbage. So who's winning this? Definitely black. So you cannot move the queen, run away from this attack. You have to find the good, perfect tactic to win the game. It is not taking this rook, if you were thinking about it, because after rook takes, you have nothing. Even if you decide to go here, he takes, you cannot take because you'll get checkmated, right? So you cannot do that. So the way to win this, you might even think about, okay, what about sacking the queen here? Well, he can just take with the rook. You take here, he takes, the exact same thing you cannot take because that will be checkmate. So you can fix that, or you can solve this by process of elimination. It's not queen takes here, it's not queen takes here. Okay, now let's say bishop takes. What about bishop takes? Well, the king, of course, cannot take. If he takes with the rook, that will be losing for him because you can just take his rook. He needs to block, and that will be checkmate. But when you take this pawn, is he forced to take with the rook? No, he can take with the queen. And if you take his queen, he takes your queen, you cannot take here because you will get checkmated. And if you decide to take here, and after he takes, he has a rook, and he will lose this game. So the best way to win this is to play rook takes b7. Now, what if he takes with the rook? I told you, you can just win the game because now the rook is pinned by the bishop. You want to maintain this piece to keep pinning the piece that is in front of the king. That's why you want to keep the bishop. Okay. Now what if he takes your queen? What would you do here? If he takes your queen, you can just take the rook with a check. Okay, now he cannot move the king, he needs to block. He blocks with the rook. What's gonna happen? Checkmate in 1. He cannot go back because it is pinned. That's why after this this check, he needs to block with the queen. And now you don't take with the bishop. Because if it takes, I don't know, but I think it's, maybe a draw or a win for black. I have no idea. But you don't take with the bishop, you take with the rook. So that when he takes, and he is forced to take with the rook, now you have the time to play a6. And now when the king moves, you can just simply pick up this pawn, pick up this rook, and get the king active, win this pawn, promote, and make a queen and win the game. Now let's look at a different position. Here, you're also playing with the white pieces. Okay? Pause the video and try to find the best move for white. Yes, the best move is to give a check, but which check? Like if you want to give checks with the bishop or with the queen, the king can just run away and you have nothing after that because this pawn is protected by the bishop. And there is no kind of queen sack because after takes, you still have nothing. So, how to find the best move? If you want to play, you have to calculate. You have played this check, the king can run away. Can you play any other check? No, you cannot. Yes, you can play this check, but you can just lose the rook for free. I mean, that's not a good move. Okay, so now you know it's not a check with the queen. Okay, what about check with the bishop? Well, the king can just run away and your queen is hanging. So, is it a good move? Of course not. So, it's not a check with the queen, not a check with the bishop. Let's try to find a check with the rook. Because the best way to win a tactic or to find a tactic in your own games is to look for the most forcing moves first, and they are checks. So now we looked at two different checks. This is not a check, this is just losing the queen. Now let's look at this check, even though it's a little bit ludicrous, but let's say there's this move. Rook takes pawn, giving a check. If the king moved, you can just pick up the queen. So now it is forcing him to actually take the bishop, sorry, take the rook with the bishop. Now what would you do? You would play this check. Now he cannot go here. Why? Because this is just one move checkmate, of course. Now after this check, you're forcing your opponent to move, and he cannot move back here because this is also a checkmate. Now the only square is not here and not here, so he is forced to go to e7. Now you take here, you take this bishop with a check. He cannot go there to defend his rook. If he went here or he went here, you will simply take the rook with a check. He moves away. Maybe you can give another check. Moves. Yes, and you can take the queen, and after he takes, you can just try to defend this pawn. And you have a lot of passers on this side, and you will be winning this 100%. Now we're going to look at a different type of tactics, which is double check. Here you're playing with the black pieces. Okay, what would you do here? First of all, what do you do in the process of trying to find a tactic? You analyze the position. I forgot to do that in like a couple of tactics before, because I already know that, but I forget to tell you that because I'm okay. Now he has a queen, you have a queen. He has a bishop and you have a knight. Okay, now he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns. So he's up a pawn, right? So if you want to trade the queens, you will lose this pawn, so he will be up 2 pawns and he has 2 passers. Is that a good trade? No. So you don't take it. What do you do then? You play knight to e3 check. Now if he moved here, you can just make a queen. And this is just losing for him because it's protected, he cannot do anything, and he will lose. After this check, you're forcing him to actually take this pawn. Now you have to play what is called a double check. You cannot take this, of course, because you will lose the queen, because it's not double check. It's one check, and check with the queen, so he can just take it. You have to play this double check, which is knight to g4. Here, knight to g4. Now what if he went here with the king? You'll play check, he will go here, and this is checkmate. So it's not a good move for him. What if he just maybe went here? You can try to play, sorry. If he went here, you can just play this check. I was trying to find a mate, but there's no mate here. You play this check and you pick up the queen. Now the only move for him is to go back there, okay, not to lose his queen, but then you can play this check, okay, and now your opponent has 2 moves. If he moved, sorry, you don't play this check because now your king has 2 moves. That's exactly what I wanted to say. You play this check to force him to have only 1 move. The less move he has, the more predictable the best move is going to be for you, right? So now he goes here, only square for the king, and now you play knight to e3 check. Knight to e3. Now your opponent has 2 options. Either take the knight or move the king. If he moved the king, it's not checkmate here, but it is a check here. He cannot move the king, he's forced to block, and that will be checkmate. So he cannot do that. That's why after you played this check, white is forced to take the knight. You will pick up all his pawns, and you are capable of stopping these, and you have a lot of pawns to promote. So this will be a win for you. Let's look at a different position. Okay, now I will not forget to tell you. Analyze the position. Your opponent has 2 rooks. You have only 1 rook. But you have a bishop, so you're up 3 points of material. He has 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your opponent right now is up 3 points of material. Okay, now stop the video. Now when you know that your opponent is up in material, that means your opponent is better than you in this position. So you have to find the best moves in order to win this. So try to find the best move. Okay, the best move here sorry, I forgot to tell you that black played the move g5. I have it like already loaded here, but the black played the move g5. Yes. So when black played the move g5, you can just take this pawn, and now he cannot take you because the pawn is pinned here. Now, what you're threatening is to play a double check, and after the king moves somewhere, that will lead to a checkmate on g7, and he cannot take. So now black, gives this check. You can just block with the rook. Now there are no more checks, and now black goes here with the rook, playing e6, trying to, if you play some kind of a check, he just wants to take this pawn, or after you take here, he wants to take with the king, so that maybe he can run away with the king. So you don't take maybe the rook, you don't take the rook, you just take this pawn with a check. After he takes, he's thinking that he can run away, but since this rook is pinned, now you can just play this check, and after the king goes to the only square, you play this check, you took his rook, and now you're the one who's up 3 points of material. He moved his king, and now all you have to do is pay attention and not lose on the back rank because your rook is pinned, right? So make sure to get back with your pieces, defend yourself, or just force a queen trade. Because after this check, you can just go back. Yes, but this is still winning for you no matter what. Now let's look at a different position. Analyze the position first, then find an answer. He has 2 rooks, you have 2 rooks, he has 2 bishops, you have a bishop, he has a knight, you have 2 knights. So it's equal in material, but let's look at the pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So your opponent is up 1 pawn. Now try to find the best move for white here. Okay. You might have thought about just maybe looking at trading taking this bishop, but then he can just take your rook, so it's not good. Maybe you thought about pushing this pawn. That might be a good move, setting checkmate, but then he can just push, something like that. And you might have thought about maybe just attacking the queen, sacrificing the knight to attack the queen to give this checkmate, but it's also not working because of some kind of a crazy ass tactic to get the win. Now, and sorry about knight to b5. There is some kind of tactic here with the queen, but after knight here, he can just pick up your queen, and now you have no attack here. So you cannot move the knight now. And the way to win this is to play first a good move and then a double check. Now, how can you find that? You can look at your bishop, which is really, really strong, and your bishop will be very, very strong and will actually win you the game. But there's a knight here, that's the problem. So what do? You sacrifice the queen. Now, hold on, I'm gonna explain it to you. When you sacrifice the queen, the king is forced to take it. And now you have to be very careful in which double check you want to give. This is a double check with the knight and with the queen, with the bishop. This is a double check with the knight and with the bishop. But if you take here, the king would move, you will pick up the queen. But is that good for you? No. Because let's say you take here, maybe he moves the king, something like that, you take his queen, you're up a pawn, but it's not so clear. You're still in the game, so there's still a chance for you to lose, to draw, something like that. So the best way to actually do this is to find a mating net. Now, what if you play this check? What will happen? You can see that your bishop is really strong, so he cannot go here, he cannot go there, and now he cannot go here because of this knight, and he cannot go here because of this pawn. So the only square that he has after that is to go here. Now you can just play knight to h6, and you don't need to give a check to pick up his queen, because now you just checkmated your opponent with this move. So that's a very beautiful tactic. Now let's look at different position, different tactic. It's called discovered attack. Now here you're playing with the black pieces. What would you play here? If you thought about playing a move like b3, giving a check with the queen, he can just pick up the queen. After you take, sorry, we have to analyze the position first. He has a queen, you have a queen. He has 2 rooks, you have only 1 rook. He has a bishop, you have a bishop. He has a knight, you have a knight. So your opponent is up a full rook and with a, no, he's up a is up 4 points of material because you have a pawn for the rook. But it's not good for you. So trying to go here, trading the queens off will not be good because you will be trading into a losing endgame. So now you have to remove this knight because you want to play some kind of a check, okay, to pick up his queen without losing your queen. So we take the bishop. Now he cannot take with the bishop. Why is that? Because you can play this check. He cannot block it. He can block here, but then you can just take it. If he went here, you can just take it with the knight, so you'll be winning his queen. That's why he will not take you with the bishop, he will take you with the queen. And now, the best move here is to take this pawn with the check. Still cannot block with the rook or with the queen, he moves the king. And now, you can give some checks. Sorry, we just went too far with it. You just, the best move here is to, it is still fine actually if you want to go for a2, to go for a2 or to go for a rook here. Yes, actually the best move is rook to d8, rook to d8. Rook to d8 because trying to get this check to support this pawn to make this queen. Yes, even though he's still up 3 points of material, but he was up 5 points of material, so now he's only up 3 points, and he would have a very active rook and a pawn that will promote to a queen since he cannot stop it with the other rook. And this rook is not enough to stop the pawn. So that's why. Now we're going to look at a different position. Most of these are actually like more than advanced level because I like to practice very difficult positions because that's how you improve your calculation. But sometimes it's difficult for me to explain it, but I'll try my best. Now a different position here. You're playing with the black pieces. Now what would you do here? We're playing with black pieces. He has 2 rooks. You have 2 rooks. Nice. He has 2 bishops. You have 2 bishops. Nice. He has a knight. You have a knight. Nice. But he has a queen and you have no queen. That's very not nice. He has up 10 points of material because he's up also a pawn. What would you play here? Taking the queen back, he will just take it with the rook, and this is not so winning. Why? Let's see. You take the queen. He takes like this. He's up 4 points of material. And you have nothing. So it's not good to trade. Not good to trade into a losing endgame. So you have to look for tricks. Now you see that you have a rook, a very strong rook here. So you might have thought about playing knight to g3 check, which is a good move. The king cannot, he cannot block it. Cannot block because this is a check and this is a check. So the king is forced to move. And after the king moves, now what happens? Try to find the best move here. Well, there is no best move here because now you are completely losing because after this check, he can just move away and you just have nothing. See, the best move here is to look for, after this check, what will happen? He will go here. Can I do something then? Well, I can give some checks, but he will just run away. This is not good. You don't want him to run away. So you play this check, knight to d4, check with your rook. Now, if he went here, you just have one move, checkmate. One move, checkmate. That's why you play this move. But he can block. He can block with the bishop. Now what would you play here? You still want to checkmate your opponent, so what would you do here? Taking with the knight is not forcing. Taking with the knight is not forcing because you can just maybe take the queen and take the bishop, and you will not be winning then. You have to go for the most forcing move, and the most forcing move it's a check. So you sack the rook just to make the move a check. Now if he moved here, it is still some kind of a check. I still think, yeah, it's a check, some kind of a check. Which one is it? I forgot. Maybe it's this check first, then the king moves here, and that's the checkmate. Yeah. Yes. But it's not this position. So after you take here, he just takes your rook. Now your opponent can move freely. So now you have to keep giving checks. First of all, you gave this check to try to force him to go here to checkmate him, but he did not fall for it. He blocked. Now you sack the rook to keep giving him checks, and after he takes you, You have to keep giving checks. And the only check that you have is bishop to h3 check. The king cannot go to the corner, cannot go anything here. King to e1. Now your opponent is up 12 points of material now, 12. But you still have to find the mate. Have to find mate in 2 here. You play this check, which is exactly what you wanted. After he goes here, the knight is protecting. The king cannot go back, and after rook to d2, it is checkmate. Even though he's up 11 points on material, you managed to win the game. That's why it's very important to look for, first of all, analyze the position. Is it a good position for me if I traded everything, or it's going to be good for him? If it's going to be good for him, you don't trade, you look for tactics. You look for checks all over the place. Even you're gonna sacrifice a piece, it's okay. Sacrifice pieces to give some checks to expose the king and checkmate him like this. Now a different position. Here you're playing with the black pieces. Sorry. What would you do here? It's very obvious that you want to give a check and just open up your rook. That's very nice. Now, but the king moves here. Now, what if the king moved here to g3? You can just give this check. He goes here, and now there is one move checkmate, and he lost the game. So that's why after this check, he needs to go back. Now, what would you do? If you thought about queen to h4, trying to checkmate your opponent some way, it is not possible, because actually he can just take this pawn. You might say, what? You can just go here and now checkmate him. Well, he can just take, and after you take, analyze the position. 2 rooks. Yes, you have 2 rooks. He has 2 bishops. You only have 1 bishop. He has a knight, and you have a knight. So he's up a piece, a full piece, and after some checks, he can just run away. So it's not winning for you anymore. That's why you made a forcing move. Now you have to find the second most forcing move. It's just another check. And the only check that you have is rook here. Now let's say that he moved away. He did not take. You can just play this check. He cannot move. He needs to block. After this check, he goes back, and this will be checkmate because he cannot block you. It's already pinned. That's why you have to keep looking for forcing moves. So here, he just takes. And after he takes, now you go check. He goes here, you push the pawn, and this will be checkmate. Even if you move the rook, check, here, checkmate. Even if you move the rook here, for example, check, here, checkmate. There's no way to stop it. And if he decided to go like maybe knight here to stop this check, that's a good move, but then he can just take. He takes with the pawn, checkmate. He takes with the bishop, still checkmate. That's why we analyze the position. It's a good position for me or for my opponent. If it's good for your opponent, look for tactics. The most forcing moves, checks. Okay? Keep giving checks. Even if you have to sacrifice your pieces, it's okay to get the king in a very weird position, in a weak position like this one, where you can checkmate him. Now we're going to look at the different tactics, which is attraction. Attraction. Here, in this position, you are playing with the white piece. What would you play? First of all, analyze. Queen, queen, nice. Rook, rook, nice. Knight, and a knight. Yeah. Bishop and a knight. The pawns are equal, even though they suck at a position, but they're still fine. It's still equal in material. Now, but your queen is hanging. That's the most important thing. And your opponent has some kind of tricks to win the game. So if you try to move the queen just to get away, you cannot take this knight because it's defended. If you move the queen somewhere else, I mean, you will just lose your knight, and you cannot really keep defending unless you win here, and there will be some kind of tricks. Will be some kind of tricks and checks. So now you have to find the tactic, attraction. And the entire idea of attraction is to attract the king that is defending the queen away from the queen, playing rook to f8. If he moves the king anywhere, you will pick up the queen later on. Yes. Sorry, if you moved not here or here. If you moved here or here, you can take it with a check. Like if you moved here, you take it with a check, he takes, and then you can just move the queen, and you'll be fine. But, of course, he will take. Now you play knight to d7. You attracted the king, you forked the king and the queen, and now he goes back to defending the queen. And you cannot take the queen. No, you cannot, because after he takes your queen with a check, you take back, he takes your knight, and now he's up 7 points of material, you're completely losing. That's why, after this check and the king goes here, you have to play another check. And it is this check, knight to h6 check. Wherever the king moves, now, after this check, you revealed an attack on his queen, and you can take his queen then, because it's protected by the knight. He moves the king, you take his queen, he takes you here, you can just take this pawn, attack his rook, take all of his pawns, and this will be a win for you. So, always look for this, look for kind of attraction. Attraction. You attract the king into a square, or a piece into a square, then you fork it with this move, and then you reveal another check, and you can pick up the queen. It is difficult, especially those advanced ones that I'm going to be talking about, but with practice everything becomes easy. Now let's look at different position. Here you're playing with the white pieces. Sorry. Now you would love to make a queen, but it's not so easy. If you want to go f7, he can just go king here, and now you cannot make a queen. You can give this check, but after this, here, he have time to stop you from making the queen, and you will not be winning anymore. So, you want to go here to f7, but you don't want his king to go here to stop you. So you play this move h6. Completely reasonable move. Now you're trying to go here, and he cannot stop you. Let's say he pushed the pawn. He will be losing after this move. He cannot stop you from making the queen. He pushes, you make a queen, he goes there, you take the pawn, and you're winning. That's why after the move h6, he needs to move the king, and he will see that, and he will move the king. Now what would you play? Again, you cannot do any kind of tricks, because the king is so close to the other pawn, and he will take the pawn back, so there are no tricks. After this, he goes here, you have to find a better move, and the better move is bishop to d3. The idea of bishop to d3 is to give this check. Let's say he pushed the pawn, you give the check. If he moved away, here or here, you will make a queen. And if he moved here, you can just push this pawn, and he cannot, even if he went here, now you can just make a queen. If he takes, you make a queen, and now you're winning. So this is the winning move, is to put the bishop on d3. But then he pushed this pawn, of course you're going to take it, it doesn't do anything. And now in this position, hold on. After this move, he puts this pawn in your face, but actually the best move is not to take it. If you take it, actually, yes, I forgot to tell you this. If you take it, there will be a check, and he will take this bishop, and he will take this pawn, and you will be losing. Sorry, I missed that. Now, you don't take here. You have to play this check first, so that if he moved away, you will go here. He takes you, you make a queen, and now you're completely winning. And here, if he decided to take for some reason, okay, you can just take this pawn with a check. He moves the king, you pick up the knight, and you're still winning because your king is so fast and so close to the pawn. He will make a pawn here, and this bishop is always ready to sacrifice itself if the pawn was pushed. Now we're going to look at a different position. Attraction. Here, this is a very beautiful position, and I really want you to try to find this one on your own. Very beautiful move. It's still in the attraction category, so try to find the best move. Okay, the best move here in this position is to checkmate your opponent, but you cannot checkmate him. Why? Because you don't have enough. You don't have the. Even if you play this kind of sacrifice, and the queen getting in, it's not going to be checkmate. It's not going to be checkmate. You have to find the most forcing move, and this is not so forcing. He can take it with a lot of opportunities, and even if he takes with the rook, now you don't have this check anymore, and you will be completely losing after that. So the move here is to attract the king, is to play queen to d8, which is crazy, I know. Queen d8. As you can see, the king cannot move. Cannot go here, cannot go here, cannot go here, cannot go here because of the queen. And if this move, there's a knight. So he's forced to take it. And now you played this move to attract the king into a mating net. You play this check after that, knight to e6. He cannot take because it is double check. So he's forced to move the king. Now, as you can see, the knight is controlling this square, right? And the king cannot go here. And if he went here or he went here, it will be checkmate no matter what. If he went here, like the Arabian mate, check here, checkmate. And if you went here, it's also checkmate. So this is a very beautiful tactic, attracting the king into a mating net, and boom, checkmate. Now we have another kind of tactic, which is clearance. In this position, you're playing with the black pieces. What would you play here? Your opponent has 2 rooks, you have 2 rooks, he has 2 bishops, you have 1 bishop, he has a knight, you have a knight, and another knight. So it's equal in material. Now the pawns, there are 3, 4, 5, 6, and you have 6, sorry, he has 7 pawns, so he's up 1 pawn. Yeah, after you analyze the position, try to find a good move. If you cannot find a check, like if you play this check, it's not completely doing anything, you can just move the king. It's not so challenging or forcing, because it is just a bishop, and it's not winning anything after that. So a check is not that purposeful in this position. Now you have to find another move. And if you cannot find a check, you have to look for threats. And what is the best value and the most valuable piece on the chessboard? It is the queen. So attack the queen. The only way to attack it is to play knight to d6. And to d6, you're attacking the queen. And also, you're doing something called clearance. You're clearing for the rook to take this knight. Now, if the queen moved anywhere out of these options, it might get captured or will lose this knight, the defense of the knight. And if white went here, was stubborn enough to keep defending this knight, now since you opened up for the rook, he can go to e3, defended by the bishop. And he cannot keep protecting this knight. And now, he can't really do anything. If he moved here, if he moved back, it's still losing. Because, yes, he's defending the knight, but now you can play knight to e4. Attack the queen one more time. If the queen moved here, you can just pick up the knight. Right? If he moved here, pick up this, he takes, and you can just take, and you're still winning this. So he cannot do that. After this, let's say he takes the bishop, he takes the knight with the bishop, and now you take back with the knight. And now, as you can see, he cannot take, it's protected. The queen needs to move away from the defense of the knight. And if he went here, actually, you don't take the knight. I believe there's a way to win the queen. If this move, he goes here, and then you play knight to d6, but now you force the queen back, and then you can just take the knight. You're not going to win the queen, unfortunately, but you just won a piece, and this will be very, very good position for you, especially with the other rook going to e8, have a strong attack. Let's look at different position here. White, I think, played the move bishop to e3. What would you play here with the black pieces? And this tactic called clearance, you just want to use your piece to give it check, to take another piece, to move it away so that you can clear for the other pieces to get through. So this rook is stopping the queen from getting on g3, right? So you want to get this rook away by clearing it. It is not about giving this here because, yes, it will be a blunder by him to take with the king because that will be checkmate, but he will not do that. He will take with the pawn, and you have no checkmates. This is not checkmate because there's a rook. No checkmate here, no checkmate here. After this check, he can just move. And after this, that will be this. So it's not so clear, okay? The best way to win this is to play rook takes bishop. You're removing one of the defenders, which is the bishop, and you're also removing the queen from defending here. And after he takes back, now you can see why you cleared this square for your queen. To give this check, and now you want to win his queen, because if he moved the king somewhere, you can just pick up the queen. And if he takes, now you don't take with the rook, you take with the pawn. The king moves back, you take his rook, and after he takes, you take with the bishop, you take this pawn, and you're up 2 points of material. You used your piece to clear for the other pieces to get through, and to fork, and to win a piece. Now let's look at the different position. Sorry. Okay. Now here you're playing with the white pieces, and you have to win this. So what would you play? It really would be nice to make this queen, but there's a bishop here, and the king is far away, a little bit far away, so you can make use of that. So what would you do here? A very reasonable move could be just, pushing the pawn, and you're completely right. But then he used the king. Now what would you do? The best move here is very simple, is to play bishop to c6. You're trying to push this pawn, and he is forced to take it back, and after you take, you have a piece, you will get to these pawns and you will win, and he cannot really stop you no matter what. No matter what. He pushes here, I think you can just go there. Right? I think that's the best move. Yeah, and if he takes you here, you can just take back, and then if he takes you, you still take, and your king is so close, you go here to take those pawns, and you will be winning this. This was an easy one, but always try to clear for your pieces, okay? It doesn't also only work in the endgame, also in the middle game. This bishop could be far more greater on this diagonal, so you can just push the pawn to make it more active. So it's not only about getting the pawn pushed, even if there was a rook there, it's about getting your pieces more active. So it is good for the end game and also in the middle game. Now we're going to talk about deflection. Here you're playing with the black pieces, and white is that like these pawns are going down here. So this rook is defended by the pawn, and now white is preparing rook to a6 checkmate, and this pawn is going up here. So a check, he cannot take you. Okay, so this check and he will win. How can you stop that? You have to use deflection. You want to deflect the king, this king, away from the defense of this bishop. How? Of course, you cannot take it because, congratulations, you just lost this game. You cannot do that. You play rook to c1 check. Why? Because you want to get the king away from this bishop, and now he cannot go here because of this pawn. He goes there, and now you can take this bishop with a check. He moves the king here, and now you take this pawn. Now you have a chance to take this pawn, because if you decided to... Actually, what about just taking here? I just want to check, because taking this here will be losing because he can go there, and he's still threatening this move. Okay. Taking the pawn right away, he still go here and checkmate you on this side. So it's not a big deal. That's why it's very important to give this check, to kick the king away, to take this bishop with a check. When he takes, you take this pawn, the defender of the rook, and after he blocks with the rook, you just take his rook. He takes you, you take back, and you have the rook here to stop the pawn and make your own queen and win the game. Nice. Now this is another position for white. What would you play here with the white pieces? Okay. Now hopefully you stopped the video to try to find the best move. If you thought about taking this bishop, well, he can just take back, and the game continues, and it's not so clear who's winning this. It's still not clear, mysterious. Now you have to win the game, so you have to find a way to win. This knight is attacking this pawn, and only if you can get the queen to checkmate your opponent. But if you play the queen to d4, he can just take your knight, and now you have no attack. Or he can just block with the bishop and attack your queen, right? So this is not the move. Instead, you play queen to c3. You might say, what is the difference? He can just take the knight and lose his queen. He cannot do that. That's why you made this move. Queen here, it's very beautiful because it is forcing. You either get checkmated or we trade queens. That you have no option. So if he takes the queen, you don't take back. You don't take back. You deflected the queen by playing queen to c3. You deflected it to take this bishop with a check first, and after the king moves, now you take the queen, and now you're up a piece, and you're definitely winning this one. Now let's look at different position. Here, you're playing with the white pieces. What would you do here? If you decided to take this bishop and he will take with the queen, it is not so clear because your opponent is up to, he has 2 rooks, you only have 1 rook, he has a bishop, you have a bishop, he has a queen, you have a queen. But when you look at it, he is up 2 points. So taking the bishop will be better for him, not better for you. So how can you win this? You might think about bishop to e2, deflecting the queen away from the defense of the bishop, but he can just take this pawn, attacking your rook, and this is not so good for you. The way to win this is to deflect the queen away from the defense of the bishop, but not with the bishop, with the queen. That's a very beautiful move. Now he cannot take this pawn, and if you move the queen anywhere else, you can just take this bishop with a check and you will be completely winning. And if he takes, you don't take back. Always focus on more important. You can take this piece with a check first, he moves the king, and now you take here. Now you might say, what? White is up a pawn, but you might think that 2 rooks are very strong. Yes, but after like any other move, like some kind of check, you just move your king, he pushes some kind of pawns, trying to create some counterplay on this side. You just have some checks, the king will move here, and it will eventually lead to a checkmate by a bishop to bishop here. That's checkmate. So it's very risky, but it's also winning for white. Now we're going to talk about another tactic, which is intermezzo. Intermezzo, when you just make an in-between move, okay? Yeah. Now in this position, you're playing with the white pieces, okay? And you're trying to win this queen. You're trying to win a piece, but you cannot win it because after this check, he gets the king closer, and now he's defending the piece. So what can you do here? And also your queen is hanging. And if you take the queen and he takes back and now you just move back, yes, but it's not so clear because your opponent still has a very strong pawn that will become a queen later on. So you play a check, forcing move, and now if he takes your knight, I believe there is a check, and after he moves here, you would have I think it is I think it's rook to f7. I just want to check with the engine. It's rook to f7. Yeah, rook to f7 is also winning because he's forced to sacrifice the queen, and after you take here, he goes there, and this is still winning for you. But after this check and he goes here, you play a check with the rook, and he needs to block not to lose his queen, and here you just make use of that. You just don't take, you just get back with the knight to d5, and after knight to d5, you're now starting to win the bishop, and he cannot defend. Even if you push the pawn, he can just take here, like push the pawn, check, move somewhere, or he can just take, but then he can take like this with a check. After he goes here, I think there's a way to win this, which is, oh, a check here, bishop takes, and done. Okay. Sometimes I look at the engine because I've looked at these positions before, like 2 days ago. This is why I'm forgetting my ideas about this one. But the idea is to give some checks to get the king, to get the queen here, to stop the pawn, so that you can get the bishop instead of the queen, and later on win the game. But this is still winning for you. Now this is white to move. Also an intermezzo. White to move here. I mean, he cannot take this knight with a check. He cannot give you this check. He cannot give you this check. And he cannot go here because he can just take. So a very reasonable move is just to push your pawn, trying to make a queen, but then he takes. What would you do here? Of course you cannot take back because, come on, he can just take you, or he can maybe play some kind of stuff here. He can play some checks and he will be losing. Yes, you cannot take because he will be losing. Rook to b1. So now you play this check with the queen. He moved his king, and now you take the bishop now. Why? because if he takes with the queen, you play a check, he moves the king, and you win the queen. That's the entire point. And now if you played this, and he didn't take, for example, he didn't take, he just moved the king, you're still winning by a lot. You can just get your pieces active, not like this one. I mean, maybe you can just go back to a1. You can just go back to a1, or this check. Yeah, he goes here, and now you get the rook in. Yeah, but there's no checkmate, but your position will be much better. And after this check, let's say he moved somewhere here. Here you cannot play this check, unfortunately. Or actually, you can play it. You can play it because you want to win his queen. And if he takes, you can just take back after some kind of check. You will move your king, and this is still winning for you because you have a queen, another position. Here you're playing also with the white pieces. Your queen is attacked, and his queen is also hanging. So what would you play? If you saved your queen, he will save his queen, and you cannot go somewhere like here, queen to f2, because you can just take your rook with a check and take the bishop. So you can take his queen. But what happens after he takes your queen? You have to play an intermezzo move. What he's expecting from you to do, just to take his knight, and he will take your bishop. And if you decided to save your bishop, he will save his knight. But in this position, you play rook to c1. And you might say, what? If he takes this pawn, if he moves his knight trying to save it, you play bishop to h7 check. He takes, and you open up for your rook, and now you're completely winning this game. That's why you played here, rook to c1, because you know there's going to be a discovered check to pick up his rook. So now he doesn't want to lose his rook, so you move his king, you take the knight, you're up 2 points, and you will be winning this for sure. Now we're going to talk about Zugzwang. In this position, you're playing with the black pieces. All your pawns are paralyzed, you cannot make a move. What would you play here with the black pieces? Well, if you thought about taking this pawn, nice. He takes back. Now what do? You don't push the pawn. Why you don't push the pawn? Because you can just go here. And now you have nothing to move except your king, and that will not be good for you because that will not be good. You have to take, and after he takes, you take back here. He cannot take with the king, of course. He takes with the pawn, and now you can just move your king, and now you're forcing him to move the king back somewhere, but then you can just pick up the pawn. You're up a pawn, and he will keep on retreating, and he cannot protect the other pawn, and you will definitely be winning this one after you move the king and push your pawns, make a queen. Very simple, very simple one. Here you're playing with the white pieces as well. It's completely equal. What would you play here to win the game? You might thought about trading the bishops, trying to simplify the game. Good move, simplifying, it's not wrong. Now, if you thought about this move, you're completely losing. Why? Well, I think the move is just he can just take you, and after you take back, he can just get the king back, and now it's not winning anymore. Yeah. So it's not this one. Yes, it's taking here, but then you push g5. What you're doing here, you're paralyzing your opponent. He cannot move the pawn, and if he pushed here, now I believe it is the move to play. Now it's time to play the move f5. Yes, now it's the move f5. And if you went back here, you can just take and make a queen, and you can take these two as well. That's why he cannot push the pawn. And if you move the king, now your king becomes active, and you will pick up the pawn. And if you try to go for your pawn, you have time. But here, what's crazy about this position, even though it's a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try to explain it to you. His king is trying to get to the pawn, okay? And you have to make a passer in some way. But after this, and he takes, you might not know the difference between just moving the king and taking the pawn. But actually, taking the pawn lead to a draw. I have no idea how, But after you move the king, sorry, it leads to a draw because of this. After you take here, he moves the king here, you push the pawn, he takes, you go here, he goes there, you make a queen, he tried to make a queen, you give a check, he goes here, another check, he goes here, you give some kind of check, he goes there, you give another check, and he goes to the corner. That's a crazy ass move. He's gonna keep getting there, and you cannot move the king to checkmate your opponent because it's a draw. That's why in this position here, when you have an option to take the pawn, you have to move away. You have to let your opponent have the pawn so that after you go and you make the exact same moves, and let's say that he went here now to the corner trying to play it like slick or something like that, now you have time to get the king closer to checkmate. That is crazy, but very beautiful. Now another position. You're playing with the white pieces here. You want to make a queen, you want to do something, you want to win this game. All the pawns are paralyzed. Moving the king will not be helpful. The bishop cannot move. So what would you play here? The best move for white here is to play this check. Now, here, so, hold on. What's going on? Yeah, after this check, if he takes with the pawn, you might be winning because after this move, you're trying to get in and take this rook and make a queen. That's a good move. But he doesn't have to take. He can just take with the king and you're not winning anymore because the king cannot get through. Even he cannot get through on this square. So it's completely a draw. Now you have to move the king. If the rook moves for some reason, how to actually win this? I've looked at it when they move the rook here. Now, yeah. Whenever they move the rook, they're stopped attacking this pawn. You can just attack the other pawn, move your bishop. So let's say here, this. He tries to, I don't know what he can do. He's paralyzed. He's trying to attack this pawn one more time. You can just take, push the bishop, and make a queen as well. That's why it's best to go king to c4, forcing your opponent into a bad position where he needs to move his king. And now you push the pawn, because earlier, if you push the pawn right away, he can take it with the king. But since you played this move, you forced his king away, and now you can play it. And after he takes, now you use your king to get to the rook. The rook needs to move. You make a queen. He takes and you take. And then you can get these pawns, make a queen, win the game. Very simple. Now we're going to talk about a different position. It's called X-ray attack kind of tactic. Now, you're playing here with the black pieces. Okay? But your opponent played a very tricky move, thinking that he's winning this game. And he played queen takes knight. It might seem to you like a blunder, but after you take back and he pushes, you might think, oh my god, I'm losing. I cannot stop this pawn. I have to sacrifice my queen for it. No. The best move here for black is to play rook to e8. That is nuts. If he made the queen, he can just take it, and after he takes back, you're still winning this because you can take this pawn, but they are saying that the best move here is to play queen to e2 to give him a checkmate right away. It's checkmate, and he cannot stop it. He needs to move the pawn. You play a check, king moves, you take the bishop, you take the pawn, you make a queen. Very simple, and you will be winning this. Now, why white took this knight? Because he thought after you take back, you can push the pawn, and you have to sacrifice the queen for it. But he did not see that there's a rook to e8. And if he took, I mean, you can just take and you're still winning this. Another position. Here you're playing with the white pieces, and this is very beautiful. They say about opposite color bishops that it's a draw. But how can you win this one? What would you play here with the white pieces? You try to get the bishop active and take this pawn. Because you cannot activate your king because he will make a queen. So this is a very, very, very huge problem for you. So you have to find a way, find a kind of two movers to get the bishop in a way to attack this pawn. You cannot attack it like this because you will lose your bishop. So you have to go here and here to attack this pawn. So you play this move, he moves his king, you go here, and now he pushes the pawn, sorry, he pushes the bishop here, you take here, and now he cannot take you. Why? Because after you take back, he tries to get closer to the pawn and he will be losing. Like after this, here, make a queen, takes, and you just have time to get close, take the pawn, and put the king here and make a queen. So after this, you take here, he gets his king closer, and you don't take this bishop, because after takes, you try to make a queen, he takes you, and there's some kind of a crazy ass tactic here for him to try to actually draw the game, which is this move. You go here, he goes there. And if he moved here, I think there's a move like this one, and here you just go here, and you push, he goes here. Go here, he goes there, and if you push here, that's a draw, and if you pushed here, it will be a draw. So there's a way to draw this if you decide to take his bishop. So the best move is just to push the pawn. You want to make a queen, and he needs to sacrifice the bishop for it. And then after that, a very important concept when you want to make a queen and the pawn is on one of the sides of the board. If you have a bishop of the same square as where the pawn is going to go, you will make a queen. Now this is a dark squared pawn, and it's going to go to a dark squared on h8, and you have a dark square bishop that will support it. So now you will make the queen and win, because even if you try to get the king there, you have a bishop that will check the king and move it away and make a queen. That's why it will be winning. But if it's a light square bishop and it's a dark square pawn, you will not be winning. It's a draw. Okay, now this is a different position. You're playing with the black pieces here. What would you play with the black pieces here? A very reasonable move, and I'm not gonna say you will not find it. It's very simple, and you will find it. It's a check. Now, what if he moved the king here? What would you play here? Well, you can play this move f5 check. If he moved the king here, you want to play this check. If he moved there, that will be checkmate. And if he blocked, that's still a checkmate, so he cannot do that. After the check, he's forced to go here. And now you play this move g5 check. If you go here, the exact same move, which is a check, and you can mate him. And if he takes, you take back, he goes here. And many of you, when you see a free piece, you don't even take the time to think. You just take it. Oh, free piece, I can just take it. But then after that, check, oops, you go here, takes, and this is not so clear. The king can stop this pawn because it's a center pawn. This is stopping this one, and it might lead to a draw. So you don't do that. After the series of moves, you always should take a piece with a check if it's possible. So now you can take this bishop without a check. So you play a check first, force it to be in a position where it's going to be in a check. Now take it, the king moves, and now you'll be winning by just defending yourself, and that will be winning for you. Now we have to go to the last kind of tactic, which is called a quiet move. A quiet move is simply don't panic, don't be afraid, don't just do something, just be quiet, and your mind should be quiet at that time. If you start to push the pawn, this is not a quiet move. This is, I want to win, I want to make a queen, I want to but then he goes here, and now you will lose the pawn. So it's not the best move. Now you just have to be making, patient. Just play rook to a1, and like, you cannot go here, you cannot stop me. Now he pushes this pawn, and you might go, oh, he's trying to go to b2. He's trying to attack my rook. So you take, and now you're not winning anymore. Why? Because he can play this check. You move here, there's another check. You move here, and he can get back with the rook. You push here, and he can stop you from making a queen. That's why. That's why when he sees something that's going to attack you, just don't take. Just push your pawn. He's like, you want to attack my rook? Well, okay, attack my rook. I make a queen. You want to take me? I take you. And this is still winning. So always try to find a quiet move and not just panic. Okay? The second position. Here you're playing with the white pieces. and black decided to go for offering a queen trade. So what would you do here? Let's see. Well, a move is simply don't take, because it's not a quiet move, it's just a chaotic move. It's like, oh, we're gonna do a lot of trades. And just move the queen back to e2. You're attacking the queen needs to move. The queen cannot go here, 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 cannot take. Only square is here. But now he's attacking your knight. So don't panic. Another time, don't panic. Make a quiet move. Don't take here, because you're down 2 points of material. You play rook to g4. To g4, he cannot take here, he cannot take here, he cannot take here because it's protected. He cannot move the queen anywhere, and he is forced to take back. And after you take here, now you're completely winning in this position. Last position here. You're playing with the black pieces, okay? And your bishop is attacked by his king. What would you do here? You have to make a quiet move. Very quiet move. Bishop to f7. I'm just attacking your knight. Move away. And then you think, oh my god, I blundered my bishop. Make a quiet move. Just a symbol. I'm just going to take this pawn. He takes here. And now you push your king and you will make a queen. But he gets this king closer, attacking this pawn, and you push. You're like, I don't care, take this pawn, I'm going to make a queen. He goes knight to g5, stopping you from coming there, so that he can just take this pawn later, and now you can just go g4, king to g4. You move the knight, I push the pawn to make a queen, so I cannot move the knight. The pawn cannot be moved. The king needs to move away, and after the king moves, you can pick up this pawn, and actually this might be winning for black. Because if some kind of checks, you can just try to make this pawn because it's very, very close to promoting. And this is it. I covered 13 different types of tactics. I covered, let's look at them all. A fork, skewer, pin, sacrifice, double chain, discovered attack, attraction, clearance, deflection, intermezzo, zugzwang, an x-ray attack, and quiet move. I covered all of these and I provided 3 positions for each one of them. I hope that you enjoyed this video and you'll learn something valuable from it. And again, if you want your free first personalized game review video, just fill out the Google form in the description. I want your username, your chess.com username, and your first name and your email so that I can send you your personalized video, because it's going to be a link. You can just click on it and you will watch it. It's a YouTube video, so that you can, if you loved it, if you loved the game review video and you want more of it, then it's going to be like paid, but it's going to be very cheap, because I want to help chess players get better at chess through making this personalized game review videos, and it's very helpful for my students. So if you want that, just fill out the form. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this masterclass.